Have we got your attention today, and are we really considering the future of 34 Moore Street? That's our first question. Or is this just about plugging up the budget? So getting into introductions, come to our resolution, and I know that this is at the end of your report. I do know that it is in chronological order, so I suppose that's fair enough, but it's some pages through the report, it's right at the end. But I just want to point out that, so this resolution that the local board made, first one there, that Howick Local Board is opposed to the sale of 34 Moore Street. Now, all these resolutions, there was a division called, and the entire board was supportive. So we've got one member overseas, and we've only got other two members that couldn't be here today. Otherwise, the six are here. And I'll just introduce Adele White, Mike Turinsky, John Spiller, Peter Young, and Jim Donald. And I'll mention them along the way as well, because they've all had roles, or they've all got views on this. They've all got roles under their portfolios that are important to take on board. So as I say, that was carried unanimously. And look, we don't blame Panuku. In fact, we're working with them. And I'll get to that when I come to the maps. And I just would say, look, we've got nothing on paper. We did it deliberately. And Councillor Filipaini talked about the two sides before with the map. I've got some visuals here, so if we keep our attention to the screen, don't necessarily focus on me, but you'll see what we're talking about. And I just want to clarify some of these things. So if we look at the back of Howick there, when we first came to this to the governing body, I think it's some years ago now, there were two properties involved. There were 14 Fencible Drive, which is there. I've just marked it there, and the property we're talking about here, 34 Moore Street. Now, our board was proactive, and I think the mayor at the time complimented us on the fact that we'd brought a proposal. We were wanting to keep 34 Moore Street, but with the 14 Fencible up the top there, we actually said, don't just take that little block, take the whole corner, develop it properly. So we actually put up a parcel of land than was proposed initially by Panuku. We said, take the block and do it right. Car parking underneath the site, a layer of retail, and maybe a couple, 2, 3 levels of residential. And that was the deal that we had with council. That's the deal we understood it to be, that we had a stay of execution to go away and work on it. One of the ironies is that Auckland Transport has just come along and said that for the top one there, the long rectangle, we might want to park some buses there as a laydown. We may want to. Not a definite proposal, no idea, but just we may want to do that. So that project gets put on hold. And as I say, when we're working with Panuku, and I hope Letitia and the people here from Panuku will verify that, we've got development plans for that site, quite extensive development plans, and we're working for a number of years on that site to develop it. As I say, a larger piece of land than what was initially proposed. But the agreement we felt that we left here with was that we would keep 34 Moore Street for the longer term. If we go to the next slide, actually just shows it again. So that's 14 Fencible. This is the other property, so not 34 Moore Street, but this is the property we put up. Don't just take that building, we said to the council. We said take the whole block, develop properly. So if you show the building again, looking up the street, so that's the building there. Looking up the street there's an apartment block there already. So let's take a look at that. That's what we said, we're quite happy with. But again, one more, maybe 2 more floors on there. Car parking, retail, and accommodation. So we're quite happy with that. There's the building down on the far right. So that was the deal that we had, and we felt we were being very proactive. Now the second recommendation there, we do not feel that a full strategic analysis had been completed by the Howick Village study. So we've got this plan that we've developed, Howick Village Tender Plan, and what we said was we needed to identify the parcel of land. Is this piece of land strategic for the future? We've had the village planners identified a number of uses for the site, and we can all come up with a number of uses. But is this something that in 10 years' time or 20 years' time could be integral? And we'll come to Adele at the end to speak about that a little bit more as the portfolio for planning. So it really is about strategic. And I can give you an example of the Pakuranga Town Centre, which I fought when I was a Pakuranga community board member. In fact, Jim Donald was a Manukau City Councillor at the time on the Hearings Committee, and he remembers, and he'll probably talk about that as well. And back then, must have been 17, 18 years ago, I fought the Manukau City Council to sell the car park at Pakuranga. Now, I had no clue what it would be used for, not a clue. But I knew it was strategic, I knew it was integral to the community, I knew it was integral to development that will happen there someday in the future. And now 17, 18 years later, we're looking at putting the busway in there. We were looking at putting the bus interchange there. Now that's gone further down. And we were looking at a possible park and ride. Now, if I hadn't stopped that piece of land staying in council ownership, then we would have had a development, like 277. There was a proposal for a huge block development. So no, we would have had the busway through, and it's that kind of hindsight. And I'm not claiming any glory here. It's just knowing we're going to need land in the future. And as I say, Adele will come to that when we talk about the Howick village in the future. And aren't local boards delegated placemaking? Isn't that the role of local boards, about placemaking? And surely that's in our town centres. That is where we play that role. You're taking away our ability to placemake if you take strategic parcels of land within our town centre away from us. As I say, we've been quite willing to sacrifice another piece of land which is far larger. So we're being quite cooperative about that. The third recommendation there is we have identified there are other uses for the property, and one of the things is that there has been a process by council to go and source possible tenants. We know that we're at the ground roots level and we have more in contact, and I'll get Mike to speak to some of the community groups that he's aware of. In fact, we've even got a letter here, and I had to black it out because of I was just cautioned by our local board services that we didn't want to mention any names and things. But you can see there, if we look at the... Sorry?
It's Jen here.
Oh, yeah, Jen. Yeah, we don't know who Jen is. We'll call her Jen. But we can look at the date. That was just yesterday. Actually, if I go back, it actually talks about, hi, it's Jen here. Just had a message, saying that we've been asked to move out of the premises. If you look there, I know I had spoken with you last year about the possibility. Last year. So this isn't something we've conjured up. This is a discussion that's been going on, and Mike will refer to that shortly, about the number of community groups that have been talking directly to us, not to council, but directly to us. And as I say, just the other day, the right way, just the other day, this came through. So it proves the point that it's been an ongoing discussion, and just recently, just the other day, came through to reiterate the need for that particular group. So if we go on to the other recommendations, again, what we're asking the governing body for is requesting the opportunity to explore any possibilities further. And in the next recommendation, we talk about those. And they're not limited to, and any of the board's members can add to this as well, a possible community hub that we've talked about. A private lease. We're quite happy for it to be leased by a private group. If that's going to be something that, if it's a community group there where there's a benefit, but we're willing to pay money. Co-location, we've talked about even having various things together. One of the things that we've discussed is the Howick Ward Office, and I won't go into too much detail. I understand Councillor Stewart has some information about that, so I'll leave that for her, or any of the board members to add. Or possibly even a youth facility. Should we go and build a $6 million youth facility, or should we utilise the building we've got? And it may be an interim thing. We think quite strategically in Howick. And we've said in that we agree to fund any feasibility assessment. As being the largest board, we've got a reasonable LDI budget, and we are relatively self-sufficient. We're happy to put in our own money. And in the next one, again, we say in the event of D&E is willing to consider funding or part funding any lease cost to council. We asked Panuku at the time, and we actually leased the building off ourselves. It was kind of ironic. We have to pay council to lease our own building, but we understand that's how the budgets work. We leased the building previously when Uxbridge was being built, the new arts centre. So Uxbridge was in there for almost a year, and we paid the rent on that. We're willing to do that again. We're willing to front up. with what's money out of our budget, operational money, to lease that building on an annual basis so that we can allow community groups to come in. And one of the issues, I'll go back to just the fact in the report it talks about there's no need from the CDAC point of view. Well, they don't have money, they don't have budget, and from their point of view, they've got to just keep to their what they're doing. They can't afford to do it, even if they wanted to do it. And again, we want to confirm the position that the property is strategic due to its close proximity to the Howick Village Centre. We note the Puketapapa local board just reopened, and it was called the Mount Roskill.
Borough Chambers.
What was it?
Borough Chambers.
No, it wasn't. It was something else. Municipal Chambers or something. And opened that just recently. And this particular building we're talking about, 34 Moore Street, was an old, it was a Howick Borough Council building back in the day. But we're not being parochial about it. But I'm just giving you an example. Other boards have been able to do this. But we're not precious about the building. Again, it comes back to that strategic use in the future. When we look at the confidential report, and I had the figure there, and you've all seen the figure, the outrageous figure, and I heard Councillor Watson talking before about the cost of some of the development work around the stadia. And as I say, we can't talk about the figure because it's confidential, but it's an outrageous amount of money. And just wanted to give an example. When as I said, we had Uxbridge, we paid for Uxbridge Arts Centre to go in there. We were told it would cost $120,000 to get it fit for purpose, just for them to go there. So that's the Uxbridge Arts Centre. Now, we said no. We said that's an outrageous spend of ratepayer money. We got it down to under 20K.
Boy,
I mean, yeah.
Phenomenal.
I mean, one of the things I vividly remember, because being an electrician by trade, and so was Councillor Witchman, Member Witchman, being electricians, they had in there $40,000 for a new switchboard upgrade. Now, we both said to each other, we looked at each other and said we could rewire half the building for that and replace the switchboard.
We should put you in charge of that.
Maybe if I don't get elected, I'll come back as a maintenance person in my new life. But that's just the point. When we stressed that, and I can guarantee that the figure in there is ridiculous. And even if it's accurate, we don't want it done up like the Taj Mahal. We are willing to pay local board funds to allow community groups to go in there. Now, beggars can't be choosers, even in Howick. You know, community groups, if they're not paying anything, they'll be happy to be in an area where they've got shelter. They can have meetings, the community groups can come together. We just want to paint the walls, you know, maybe do the carpet, just keep it simple. Just make it tidy, and we don't want to be outrageous. Again, it's about the site being strategic too, so it's not just about the building, but we feel we've come up with a solution that at least returns revenue for that building. It's been sitting there 5 years not doing anything. Yeah. It's actually been a cost to council, and it's probably an opportunity cost. We're being, again, proactive and saying we're happy to foot the rent and at least, you know, defer the decision for a time that we may be happy to develop it in the future. We may be happy that it be turned into something. It could be a community type use with apartments above or whatever. I mean, we don't know. We're robbing governors of the future of the Howick area of the opportunity to just make decisions. You know, where is the governance? One thing I want to reiterate about, and Councillor Hulse is here, about how proactive we were with the unitary plan. A lot of boards, and actually including our councillors at the time, were voting against the unitary plan. Councillor Hulse was the chair then, and I think Councillor Filippina then took that role on, and now Councillor Darby heads the planning. But we were proactive when local boards are screaming when the unitary plan came along and wanted to put in their own submissions. I was one of the chairs, but with the support of my board, to say no, let's be part of the Auckland Council submission, and let's work together. We've demonstrated this time and time again. When I came to some of you on Friday, giving an update on the annual plan, I said we didn't come wanting anything. We were relatively helpful with how things are going. As I say, we're self-sufficient. We don't come knocking on the governing body's door very often. It's not very often that you'll see myself or the Howick Local Board here asking for anything. But this is the one time we are coming. As I say, we're working with Panuku on 14 Fencible Drive. It's, as you say, it's unfair that Auckland Transport can come along and say, we may want to park, we may want to have bus lay down there, which will be on the street anyway, be out on the road. It won't be in the car park. But it's unfair that they can just put a hold on that whole project. Yet we as a local board have to come here and beg to retain a property. We would hope that you would see us in the same light as Auckland Transport considers. And I know that the CEO, Stephen Town, was here some time ago this morning. And when I heard us talking about the council family some years ago, I was quite enthused. And, you know, if we are a family, then we'll consider all the members of the family the same. As I say, how is it that Auckland Transport comes along and just does this? And one of the things I want to end, before we come into some of our members, is one of the things I learnt from the late Councillor Neil Morrison. Many of you knew him and worked with him. Is he taught me, when I came in as a new councillor, one thing, and I've used it in life a lot, and it was about, is this fair and reasonable? And I've used it every time I've made a decision. I use it in my daylight, in my life. Is this fair and reasonable? And I think that's the question we should ask whenever we're making decisions. Is this fair and reasonable? We don't think it is. We think we've come up with a fair and reasonable proposal. We want some autonomy in our community, and we're hoping the governing body is true to the co-governance philosophy that we have. And so I'll just, I don't know who wants to go first. Maybe Dow wants to go first. As I say, Dow heads up our planning portfolio.
Okay.
You don't have to. Yep.
Mr. Chairman and councillors, David's already alluded to the fact that last year the Howick Local Board was fortunate that there were resources available to commission a Howick Village plan. We hoped that this might identify any strategic property in the area, but it didn't. My point is that this is a 30-year plan. Over future years, we're going to see significant intensification in that area, and I believe that 34 Moore Street could be an important insurance policy. It's a centrally located piece of land, and it could be available to meet the future needs of Howick. That may be a town hall or a community centre or whatever Howick needs at that time. I haven't got a great deal to say, but I'd just like to pass on a quote from Gary Bowles, who would have liked to have been here today, but work didn't permit him. And his little word of advice to us was, you don't sell your real estate. Thank you.
Yes, thank you again for the opportunity, Mr. Chair and councillors. My other job, usually when people ask me what I do, I first say I'm a youth worker. For the last 14 years in the Howick area, I've served the community through a community group as a youth worker. I happen to be the CEO of that organization as well, so I do understand business. I understand how to get things done for very little money. But again, I've done that for the last 14 years here in the Howick area. I've also spent the last 28 years working with community groups and also for-profit businesses, but working with community groups and community development as part of my career. Now, we're all familiar with the concept of empowering communities. It's on the Auckland Council website, the empowering community approach of council. And the whole of the Howick Local Board supports that approach. So we affirm that. And of course, you're aware the Empowering Communities Plan acknowledges that the best results for communities are achieved when all the key stakeholders are enabled and empowered to work together. And we believe that part of our proposal here really helps accomplish that. So I won't go into some of the bullet points of the Empowering Communities Plan because I'm sure you're aware of that. But again, highlighting my experience with community groups over the last 28 years and 14 years in the Howick Local Board area, I have not only done the work on the coalface, I work alongside community groups who are doing the work on the coalface. And we all are aware that community groups are the ones doing the hard yards and they are on the coalface of our community. And most of these groups, as you know, operate without their own premises. Most community groups start in a garage, on a dining room table. And most of these community groups don't have access to sufficient premises or resources to increase their effectiveness. And most of them are run by volunteers and on extremely limited resources. It's very difficult for them to procure and resource space for meeting or operating. And as David highlighted, the email that he highlighted that I got just the other day, it demonstrates the difficulty it is for community groups to actually raise their hand up, look around and say, we need help. A year ago, I spoke to that resident working with community groups. She says, I know I was supposed to send you said to send me the email a year ago. I'm just getting to it now. And that demonstrates the difficulty it is for community groups to actually, from an operations perspective, get things done. And yet they're on the ground working with the people that we serve as councillors and elected local board members. But again, because of my past and present experience with community groups, I can confidently declare that there is clear and present need in our community for more space, community space for our community groups to operate and collaborate. And we as the whole of the local board want to support those community groups. We want to empower them to do the work that they are called to do. And I believe, again, this is based on my experience, I believe that if we can increase the capacity of community groups, we actually increase the capacity and the resiliency of our whole community. And this is not necessarily a council-led thing. This is us saying we want to see our communities doing well. And I can talk about groups that are senior groups, community groups, cultural groups. We've got youth development groups. We've got budgeting groups and the toy library who are saying we want to use that space. And that's just me rattling off a few. And each one of us have connections with different community groups that are saying, we really need it. And if you hear reports contrary to that, I can tell you from somebody who's on the coalface every single day, I spend 15 hours a week in local schools mentoring young people, and I spend other time as a part of the local board interacting with community groups. I can tell you firsthand that there is a massive need, and if you hear a report that is contrary to that, then you're hearing incorrect information based on my opinion.
So as I say, the community development organisation was...
Point of order, Mr Chair. Can I just have a bit of clarity? Because it's understanding orders, it's 5 minutes.
I know.
And in the agenda it says Mr David Collins. And it's fine. I mean, it's good to hear, but if we're going at this rate, it'll be 10 minutes each, it'll be an hour, and we'll be 8 o'clock, and we still have many...
I
I'm just concerned
indicated
about that.
to David that it needs to roll a little
I'm
bit
finished.
faster.
And sorry,
I'm
Mr.
afraid.
Chairman, I thought it was 10 minutes, so my apologies.
fine.
Yes.
And I didn't mean to use it all, and I was hoping to save some time.
a long time for us today. So
Yeah.
we've got more to
I'm
do.
being patient.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, and I hope councillors do appreciate we've been sitting here for 6 hours waiting.
So
Okay, well, let's
But-
move to the
but-
next
but
speaker.
we're just going to
Have
sit
you
here
got
waiting
the
for the
next
bus.
three are going to speak,
So
please?
if we can, if there's something quickly that any members would like to add, if we haven't added anything, we'll just...
Yeah, hi, John Spiller from the Howick Local Board. Thank you, Mr Chairman and members, for allowing us to speak. I don't want to talk from a financial standpoint. I want to talk more from what people in Howick identify with and what they have a bit of a sense of pride in. Howick's a small community, small business community, quite tight-knit. Our family's been in business in Howick since 1942. I think we're the longest existing retail operation in Howick now. And we've got some special places like the Old Anglican Church, which is the second oldest church in Howick. We've got Stockade Hill with its iconic views. Now, this building we're talking about certainly isn't in that category in terms of its iconicness or its age, but it has been there for over 30 years. It was created as part of the former Howick Borough Council, and there's still a lot of people from those days who relate to that building. So I think it's very important that we keep it, future use. I support all the comments that the other members have made. And I just hope that you can find it in your hearts from a community point of view to allow us to keep this building for the people of Howick and for the future of Howick. Thank you.
Any other quick comments?
I wanted to say, everybody, that I remember the business case we did 6 years ago where the dollars added up. I know of 5 groups who want to go into that building and paid to use the building. One of those groups was nearly given the key a few months ago to go and lease it. I was a builder before in my previous life, and the amount of money that's being quoted to get the building up to date is, in my opinion, too high. Sometimes we don't think in long term, and I think we've proved it here today. But I want to also quote Neil Morrison. We don't sell our jewellery to pay for the groceries.
For that opportunity, Mr. Chairman, and we're happy to. Did you want to say something?
Okay, so I have two
Sorry,
questions.
just got one more quick
Oh,
comment.
sorry, yep.
I'm Peter Young. I'm in charge of the ethnic group in the Howick, which have 40% of ethnic group people, Asian and Chinese and Indian. And all of this community need to be educated. I hope that this area can have a training room so I can educate those people, have more engaged with the community. We have a lot of volunteers, but they need to be educated to a fixed pace. And now I'm doing it every Saturday in Ormiston
Peter, that's.
Center, but it's too small. Thank you.
I have two
Happy to answer any questions.
Yep, I have two questions. So David, I suppose the issue is to a degree why now, and I'm looking at clause 41, and it says as part of Panuka's due diligence, it has reviewed the 11, 14 and 17 Howick Local Board plans. 34 Moore Street is not specifically mentioned in the Howick Local Board plan, and the development of a multi-use community facility within the Howick Village is not stated as a priority outcome in the Howick Local Board, nor as a Local Board initiative. So can you answer that?
Well, it's actually a proposal that was put together well before I was chair. So back in the Michael Williams day, so that was at least 5 years ago, there was a plan for a community hub. But as I say, as they've done now, ACE, which was CDAC, said there was no need. We've just heard from Mike Drinsky, who's embedded in the community. We really appreciate what he's brought on to the board in knowing the need of the community. Now, we as a council, we're not equipped to actually go out there and really do that research. We put out public notices, expressions of interest. No community groups come and note to those things. You've just seen how an email to a member comes about after a year. They're probably so busy. But if something is in the paper and the process the council goes through, it's just too onerous for some of those groups. We know there's a need. As I say, we're willing to. We didn't put it in our plan because actually we've been waiting to find out what's going to go on with it. We've waited in limbo ourselves for the study to say that this piece of land isn't strategic as we think. Hasn't been proved, so we're still there. We're still saying we want to keep a piece of land that's strategic because of its close proximity to the town centre, one of our town centres, and we have a proposal to put to the governing body to actually fund it. So we're not asking for any operational costs. We think we're being very proactive.
So Mike, just to you, and again, this is clause 42 as part of the local board views, it states there that there are already three council-owned community facilities in the area available for casual. So you're overflowing. They're fully booked out. There's no more space in any of them.
There's an obvious and stated need in the Botany and Flatbush area, which has very, very little a community facility available for community groups, and there are community groups who are not able to use the existing spaces because they are currently used, and most of the time the community groups, what we're talking about, we're not necessarily talking about just hiring it for an hour. We're talking about people who groups that actually need regular space and access to regular space to actually operate, and these are very important community needs, right, such as youth development and cultural. And just to respond to your question to David, our first outcome in our local board plan is to have involved and connected communities. And so part of that is to have community groups and people in the community to participate. So that is actually in our local board plan.
So a follow-up question to that. So you just mentioned actually that the needs were really in the Flatbush area. This is quite a way away from the Howick Town Centre. Is there sensible that we build some more resources there?
We would like the resources there, and
absolutely.
I was there on Friday asking for the facilities for Flatbush for the growth. But that community is coming to Howick and Pakuranga.
Okay.
That's the unfortunate thing.
Okay.
Just like we do with this pool. We have one swimming pool for the area population the size of Dunedin. So people in Botany don't go, well, we don't have a pool. We go to the pool in Pakuranga. That's just how our community operates. And in fact, one of the things I wanted to say today, we're not being parochial. We have 3 representatives from Howick, 3 representatives from Pakuranga, and 3 representatives from Botany. And as I say, we're all in agreement. So we're not
All good, all
worrying
good.
about our
Yep,
patch.
yep,
We
yep,
actually.
Yep. Councillor Cashmore.
Thanks. I want a couple of things very, very clear. Your local board will cover the CAPEX for any repairs and upgrades and OPEX.
Well, not to the level that's put in the report, but to a degree. That, yeah, as I say, we got the other budget down, and as you know, I've been working on the procurement group, and appreciate yourself and the chair coming to that meeting.
The report mentions structural deficiencies. I don't know. I'm not a
Doesn't need to
builder.
be structural.
Well, I mean, as we say, the building's not necessarily the be all and end all. It's about the strategic piece of land. That building has sat there for 5 years. It'll sit there for another 5 years and not fall over.
So that's exactly my next point.
But we are willing to in the future, perhaps engage in something that
So
fits. But
why couldn't we sell it as part of that sale arrangement? You get space on the ground floor for your community activities in a modern new building. So you sell a jewel and create a new embedded jewel with it.
Well, that's what we're actually working on with we've already done that with that first property. And as you say, it's been stifled because Auckland Transport say, we might want to park some buses there. You know, how can that stop the process?
But
We've actually identified that whole site. Well, that was the agreement that we had, all due respect. Absolutely, we would do that. But we've already identified that was be the first one we would develop.
So have you run that past with the Panuku staff on 42 Moore Street, doing exactly that? Retaining some of the ground floor of a new development?
Well, that is one of the options if it were to be sold, but we don't. We want to keep to the plan, and that is further out, and that's kind of future development. So we've identified the closest one, and that's the kind of like if you like the obvious one to be developed first. Yeah. Because of its location to the town centre. You know, you don't want to, if you've got a town centre here, you don't want to develop a supermarket over there. And then start developing back. You develop the supermarket adjacent to the town centre and allow it to go out. You know, I mean, that's just good planning.
Okay, well, there's no further questions.
I had a hand up.
Councillor Simpson.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, David, I read the report and it was pretty clear to me that you sell the property. I've listened to you though, and yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm beginning to change my mind. Look, my questions are similar to the chair and the deputy mayor. You know, it says you've got an over provision of community space. It's going to cost a lot of money just to keep doing nothing with it, and it's going to fall over. Pretty much, it's going to. Okay, that doesn't make sound financial sense. All right. So actually, I had the same idea as the deputy mayor. In my ward in Meadowbank, we have a one-storey community centre. Right, can't meet the needs. They're selling it. And they're actually going to develop it twice as big with apartments on top, and it's pretty much going to be a pretty cost neutral kind of thing. Is there any way you would it's going to cost a lot, and it's not your money and our money, so it's our money.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter whether it's your budget or somebody else's budget; it's our budget.
Yeah.
So would you entertain the sale to give you a better outcome, i.e. to give you a brand new facility? I mean, your bottom line is you believe, and I believe you believe you need a community space, right?
Yeah.
So I think that actually we can find a really happy compromise. I think that we can give you your community space, and it's just a prerequisite of the sale. So it's not sold for a total housing development. It is sold for the first, at least double the size. I mean, I've just got to just think and talk to these guys when they come next. But you double the footprint of what you've got for community space, because that's what you're going to have growth, all right?
Yeah.
At the moment, you're saying I'm going to stay still, and she's going to rock and shudder, but I want to keep here.
Totally understand where you come from.
So if we built some resolutions around that, would that be okay with you?
Well, look, that's exactly what we've done with Panuku and the over the road. We've said we want to retain the car parking underneath, so that's not detrimental to the centre. We want an add retail, so it adds complements to the centre, and we're quite happy for 2 or 3 stories of accommodation. The situation we have with the other site is we see it as strategic. So there's 2 things. It's a bit of a chicken and egg scenario. We want to retain the land holding for the future.
So you lease it,
because in 10 years' time, you're absolutely right about the proposal. I'm not saying that's wrong, but there could be a better use for it. Or if we just go, let's sell it tomorrow and get some development, that's easy. Anyone can do that. But in 10 years' time, whoever the local board is, or might be the local council by then, Howick Local Council, whatever. Howick City Council, yeah. No, but whoever, I don't want to be around, because it'll be a new group. We are robbing them from the opportunity. They might want to build a performing arts centre, and they might want to build the performing arts centre with retail and apartments above, and get a much better yield and a much better development.
Now, wait a minute, long question, long answer.
Well, it's important that we get that right, because we are putting a proposal here. We're saying we want to explore these opportunities, and I'll put my reputation on the land line here. Give us the 12 months to go through this proposal, and I guarantee we will find the groups to use it. So we're finding a use for it. We're fully funding it ourselves, and if I'm wrong, I won't stand at the next election.
So I'm just going to ignore that.
But that's my commitment. Okay. That's my commitment to knowing that this project will work. Council tell us it won't work. Mike and others here, we know that we've got a community need.
But we've still got to do it up if it's falling over. So you're saying give us 12...
Not the Taj Mahal. We don't want the Taj Mahal.
You're saying...
You know how frugal I am.
Can we get on to the
Okay, right. I will say...
You know how frugal I am, and we are all that way.
I haven't finished my questions, Mr. Chairman. So you're saying give us 12 months, we'll pay the annual 800... No, 25 to 57...
For the annual, whatever it is, the rent or whatever cost, is it? The
ongoing operational cost for the properties.
Yeah.
You're saying
and we're paid to rent it from council
between now and September next year.
Yep. And we'll probably have it up and running in the next couple of months if council helps us and doesn't put hurdles in our way, because we health and safety and all that sort of stuff.
What a gift horse.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
I guess what we're saying is long term, we see this as a strategic piece of land.
Yeah, I get that.
In the short term, you guys don't want to sit on it, and it's sat there for 5 years doing nothing. And if we had worked closer with Panuku and council in the past, we would have put this proposal back then, and we'd had 5 years of revenue that we would have been paying. We're doing that now.
It's a no-brainer.
10 months.
Seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
10 months.
Particularly after all those other discussions that we've had.
Right.
This is a simple one.
You've got Desley on site.
10 months. I'll give you 10 months.
Right, well, thank you, David. I'll just point out to you, though, when you said 12 months' time I'd resign, I saw 5 other faces light up next to you.
They're lining up
Not true.
Job, mate.
Not true. Just some of them. Right.
They were probably in shock more than anything. They would put my political career on the line.
Thank you. We're going to ask staff to come up. There's no more questions, so we're going to ask
Well, I
staff.
have some questions.
Oh, sorry. Well, I can't keep track of everything, Councillor Newman.
I'm helping you.
And it hasn't been entered here as waiting to speak. I'm sorry. I should develop more eyes.
Long term.
Councillor Newman.
Yeah, look, what I wanted to understand was the nature of your Howick Village Centre plan. I get that if you were to look at the footprint of the Howick ward, you've got a number of facilities, but actually the Howick ward is a very big ward, servicing a lot of communities, and that people are travelling within it, and people are travelling to your facilities from outside the ward too.
Correct.
So can you give some reflection to me about that? Because I don't want to just think that what we're doing here is we're creating a little fiefdom in Howick. Actually, this is quite a dynamic community, and that what you're proposing, if we were to retain this, actually provides for utility that actually could serve quite a wide catchment beyond this particular area.
Well, as you asked the question the other day, on Friday, Councillor Newman, about how long our facilities at Flatbush have been, you mentioned them being in the Manukau LTCCP, the Long-Term Council Community Plan, before we formed into LTPs. We've been waiting for those facilities for a growing population out there in Flatbush. I've heard we just hit the 160,000 mark as population, and again larger not only than Dunedin, but now we have to say we're larger than Tauranga, because Tauranga is now past Dunedin. But so we're waiting for those facilities. These facilities could be utilised very quickly
Yep.
and serve that need, serve that wider need. As I say, the ward, and that's probably why we're not parochial. The ward actually works quite harmoniously. There's a lot of networking between Howick, Pakuranga and Botany. You know, we're all going to Santa Parade in Howick. You know, we all, want keen on amity down in Pakuranga. We want all the facilities in Botany.
And just to reiterate it's actually restating the question from Friday, but I recognise that not everyone was here. So if the legacy timeframe of the Manukau City Council had been allowed to continue, which had your centre and Flatbush
Been done yesterday.
at year 10, we actually would have been at the ribbon cutting yesterday. But you're some way off. So roughly how long is this needed? And is this needed until the new facility is made, or?
No, it's needed.
Or in perpetuity?
It's probably into perpetuity. The other thing too that Dale's just reminding me of is there's going to be extensive works in the Pakuranga Town Centre where our current ward office is, and as I say, I know Councillor Stewart's got some figures on that. And major works. We've got the Reeves Road flyover, so we're freeing up the roads for the public transport, the busway, and also there's development in the town centre. So it's going to be absolute chaos.
Okay.
So actually, this could be an opportunity. It could be that we actually need a building in the next short term.
Thank you.
Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been a great pleasure having the local board appear today, and I must say that how much I'm enjoying working with your ward councillors. Has there been a lot of liaison with your ward councillors on this? And can I be assured, it might be nice to hear from Councillor Young, that they are wanting your proposal to be formalised?
I'm presuming obviously we have to answer questions once the discussion opens up, that they will be very supportive. We've spoken with both of them.
That's great.
And definitely, yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Right, just to cover myself, I'm looking right around. Is there any further questions? Nope. Right, thank you. Paul, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the local board members. I just want to ask what kind of arrangement, whether our local board office will consider moving to the 34 Moore Street, because as you just mentioned, amity starting, the people hard to get inside the Pakuranga Shopping Centre.
That's exactly what I was saying. With all that disruption in the town centre, we may have to go and move out of that current ward office, and we're actually renting that space. We're actually renting, and I'll leave it to Councillor Stewart, he's got all the figures, but we're actually paying rent there, whereas we've got a building spare there that we're quite happy to move into. As I say, we don't want the Taj Mahal, do we? We don't want flash things, we're just quite happy to have shelter, there's no rain, the decor, we're not worried about beautiful decor, we're quite happy to, buckle down. Very frugal we are. We pinch the pennies, but you save the pounds when they all accumulate.
Keep an eye on the contract.
Yes, you will.
Right, thank you, David and team. Appreciate and thank you for hanging around for some time. Now, I'm going to ask, and I'll move that. Well, actually, I'll ask the local councillors to move that way. Councillor Stewart and seconded by Councillor Young to thank you, receive and thank you. So all those in favour?
Aye. Aye.
So now, what is unfortunate is that Letitia, who is the Panuku expert, is actually had to go home because
I'm not surprised. It's 7 o'clock.
No, her child is not. There's something not right. So she has had to leave. So we're going to ask Marion to come up, and please be aware Marion is not necessarily right all over this, because this is Letitia reports to Marion. So thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marion, and I'm sorry that you're in the hot spot, but I suppose that's part of the responsibility of being an authoriser of the report, and therefore you're really all over it.
Indeed, thank you, Mr. Chair. We did have 3 people from our team here earlier, and all of them have had to go home because of child and parent responsibilities. So apologies that I am the last lady here to talk to this. I will just run through some key points and then happy to answer any questions that I can.
So 34 Moore Street is a council-owned property which Panuku has been rationalising since 2011. It hasn't been used for a council service since 1995. Panuku has engaged with the council's business units multiple times regarding this property, and no service use has been identified through that time. 34 Moore Street has been recommended for disposal to this committee in 2013 and again in 2014. In 2014, this Finance and Performance Committee deferred the sale of the property at the request of the Howick Local Board to allow time for the board to complete its Howick Village Centre plan, which would identify the optimal use for 34 Moore Street. The Village Centre plan was adopted by the Howick Local Board in 2017. The plans identified 34 Moore Street as a strategically located site suitable for residential and retail development. The Howick Centre Village Centre plan states that development of this site would contribute towards enhancing the Howick Village atmosphere, offering improved connections and well-integrated public spaces. A key action of the Howick Village plan, Centre plan for the Howick Local Board, was to work with Panuku on the development of this site and other council-owned sites suitable for development in the Howick area. Given that no council service use has been identified over the past 7 years, Panuku recommends the development of this site as envisaged in the Howick Centre plan. The council's departments have advised Panuku that there is currently an over-provision of community facilities in the Howick Local Board area, and have advised us that there is no reason to retain 34 Moore Street. Panuku has advised the Howick Local Board that if it considers the need for a community space it wishes to provide a budget, it can be incorporated into any future development of 34 Moore Street. If the property is to be retained, there is approximately $800,000 of urgently required maintenance. We believe this is a conservative figure. We've been advised by the Council's Community Facilities team that these costs will rapidly escalate if the required works are deferred. In addition, the Council will lose the opportunity to provide additional residential dwellings to the Oakland region, forego the proceeds of sale from this property of nearly $5 million, lose the opportunity to develop the property as envisaged in the Howick Village Centre plan, and the need to provide, I suppose, unbudgeted operational expenditure or reallocate funding from existing planned or funded projects in other parts of the region. If 34 Moore Street is to be retained, Panuku would like the Finance and Performance Committee to advise which council business unit will be responsible for the property going forward. And we would also like the committee to allocate the currently unbudgeted OPEX and CAPEX for the retention of this property, including the required remedial works of $800,000 at least. Alternatively, the committee would need to advise if OPEX and CAPEX is to be reallocated from other existing planned and future projects. The asset assessment undertaken is an initial investigation and has been highlighted really the immediate issues. It doesn't really include any fit-out costs for any proposed council service uses or for that of a commercial tenant. The assessment has only recently been undertaken given the uncertainty of the property's future, and because the site has been identified as suitable for development in the Howick Village Centre plan and by Panuku. Panuku has held the building in its portfolio since 2014 and has sought to commercially lease the building during that time. The at least $800,000 required to remediate a 40-year-old non-service property really, when it comes to be recommended for development, would not be recoverable. And I will happily answer questions that the committee may have at this point, if I can.
Questions from anyone?
Yep.
Councillor Cashman.
So you heard my suggestion to the local board about allowing the sale, but part of the Codazole would be that a part of it to be kept for the local board's use for a community facility, a new modern dual, if you like. Has that been canvassed at all or discussed with Panuku?
Yes, that has. And under the, I suppose, the framework of optimisation, this property doesn't fit that service property optimisation criteria, in that it hasn't had a service use in that building since the mid-90s. However, we have indicated to the Howick Local Board that should community space be needed on the ground floor of a development, that would be great, but it needs to be paid for by somebody. And not necessarily the sale of the airspace. And that is given, that advice basically in part is because we have liaised repeatedly with the council's business units who have advised us that there isn't a community need.
Councillor Cooper.
I suppose you've answered the question around the opportunity cost, and in terms of the budget that the governing body set to have a return through disposal. So that means we'll be about 5 million down on that budget. So will we meet, do you think we'll be able to, the way we're tracking, do you think we'll be able to meet the budget for this financial year?
With respect to other properties?
Well, just in general, this is a chunk of it, isn't it?
Well, this is a large chunk of it. It is a, $5 million is quite a lot of money. Chair and Deputy Chair of Finance will have to try and sort that one out. In terms of the 800,000, we heard the elected experts on building. I'm just a bit sort of gobsmacked that we just throw away expert opinion on that. But so if there's 800,000, my issue is if they're saying it only needs a coat of paint and a bit of carpet, my real concern and our responsibility, it won't be sheeted back to the local board, it'll be sheeted back to the council governing body, is the health and safety issues. So if this 800,000 isn't spent or thereabouts, well, are there issues around health and safety in that building that we would have obligations for? That's my real concern, being, having a responsibility of that as a governing body member. Through the Chair, my understanding from the Council's expert team is that it's 800,000 as a bare minimum. And as I mentioned, Panuku has held this property in its portfolio since 2014. We haven't leased it, and this in part is due to the condition of the building and the uncertainty of the future.
So it's been empty for that
condition.
long? Mm-hmm. And so I heard wiring, so I'm worried about things like electrical fires and things like that. Is that the sort of things they're having to do?
I'm not across that detail, Councillor, unfortunately, but I will say that the property has been leased on and off over that period, so it hasn't been empty since 2014, just to clarify that point.
I think, and in terms of the community facilities plan, it might be better, Councillor Hulse might know more about this, but this has been, we've looked across the community facilities plan and it's basically identified that this space is not needed in terms of the plan that's been agreed. Okay,
oh, that's right. Yes.
Thank you.
Stewart.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, thanks. Thank you for that. Yes, thank you for that update. In 1995, the Howick Borough, when it became part of Manukau City Council, that's when the Howick Borough Council moved out of that building. And in 1995, that's when the New Zealand Police, they actually moved in there. Now, I don't know if you can put some of the diagrams back up there later on. The map, one of the buildings just behind the building that we're talking about is a prefab building which currently actually has the police in it now, and we also have our community patrols using it, so it would be a real loss to Howick if we ended up losing that building, and it is really a building that I think we need to retain.
What's the question?
David, have you got the...
What's the question?
You've
Just advance it a couple.
We're on questions, aren't we?
Yeah, but quick, can you just show where the, yeah. So...
Just down the bottom of that, isn't it?
Just down the bottom, there's a prefabricated building, and that's where the police are currently, and the community patrol
Question.
Base there.
You have to ask a question, councillor
It's a
Stewart.
question
You
time.
do have to ask a question.
It's question time.
Asking
Okay.
confirmation.
So do you think it would be quite a good idea for the Howick Local Board, who are currently in a little TAB building down near the plaza, which perhaps with all what's happening with Amity is going to be disrupted, that it would be a good use for the Howick Local Board to move back into that building? And do you think that maybe the $800,000 that you've been talking about, that perhaps if it's not all the bells and whistles that quite often we do in our buildings, and it's just something very simple, as the local board and the community are quite happy with, that would be acceptable?
Through the chair, my understanding is that the $800,000 that is urgently required on that building is to be used irrespective of what the use is. We have liaised with the corporate property team about the possibility of the local board relocating back to 34 Moore Street, and we have been advised that due to the size, configuration and the cost on top of the $800,000 just to fit out the local board office, really my understanding from them is that it isn't suitable, it's too costly, and it's not a suitable building for that purpose.
Would you not, have you been inside the building yourself?
Oh, councillor, I think she's coming back with the expert advice. I don't think we need to get down to personal opinion. She's been quite straight about it. Any further questions, councillor Stewart?
Not at the moment.
Councillor Hulse.
Thank you. So just to take, I think the Deputy Mayor and I are on the same track as we often are. The idea of selling the property but working with a developer to develop a community facility, opportunity for the board, but to realise what is an absolutely key site. I mean, I don't know this area well, but I know this site, so I know where it is and I can picture it well. It's a huge site and it's an absolutely critical site and could make that area. I'm just struggling with why that doesn't seem like a good idea.
Yeah,
I
me
do
too.
understand that we would have to, through Panuku, so this is just me clarifying, so this is the question. Through Panuku, we would have to look at some, a caveat on the site or some partnership opportunity to redevelop this site, and possibly to finance that. It may be that another site may have to be sold to develop a really crash-hot community facility on this site. Because I am, Mr. Chair, I won't speak again, I am struggling with the idea of forking out $800K, foregoing this amount of money to retain something that's sat vacant for 2 years. I'm really struggling with that. So I'm just interested in a comment on whether we could pull something like that together with the local board and with the community.
So through the chair, we have explored this option with the local board. We have advised them that yes, there could be, there is an opportunity for a community space on the ground floor, but again, that comes at a cost to the council, so that could be done through a commercial lease or what have you with a developer. Absolutely, that can be explored. But again, going back to the advice that we've received from the council business units since 2013, through the various assessments, that there is an over-provision in Howick in terms of community facilities, and there is no need for it there.
Okay.
Councillor Stewart, again. Yep.
Yes, I just, would you be able to put my amendment up, please?
Yep, if you ask for it. Yep, we're all good.
And I'd like to move the amendment, and I think Councillor Young would like to second it.
Okay, so we'll put that up.
And it's up.
Councillor Stewart, do you want to speak, please? Speak to it.
Right. Okay. Well, I think what we've just been talking about, I think you can see that there is a need to retain this building, and it would be terrible if we lost it. So
Councillor Young, are you happy to second this?
Yes.
You are, okay, thank you.
So, just so we're quite clear, Councillor Stewart and Councillor Young, so you're putting that up, and B, in effect, so A is a thanking the board or whatever, is it? And B then replaces what's in the paper, A and B, is that correct?
That's correct.
And just so we're clear for the other councillors to understand, so you've used the word retain the property there, and it's pretty. There's not much else saying there, so it could be interpreted that retain is retain in perpetuity. Councillor Walker, I don't know why how this is helping the question.
Entirely constructive, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Because that's pretty definitive. That's it. Retain it. End story.
To retain it and to give the Howick Local Board an opportunity to renovate it.
So they've got the 800,000 themselves.
And we'll have to find a budget.
Okay.
And you're going to give them
Point of
10,
order,
you're going to
Chair.
give them 10 months?
I would have thought that the wording,
12 months?
the wording of the resolution is within the purview of the mover and the seconder.
We don't have
That's it. If there was a future decision by a future council to have a look at this, then the resolution, I guess, would come up at the future point. But as I understand it, that's the position that's been proposed, and we just debate and vote that.
That's fine. It just might mean that David Collins doesn't stand at the end of the year, because he made the statement that unless something's advanced, I won't be standing again.
It will allow us to do some work, not just retain the property.
That's what I'm just trying to help you out. Just trying to help you in, but it's up to the movers and seconder. This is what's up there now, so please, any questions or comments?
I did say that if we could also give the opportunity for the Howick Local Board to have an opportunity to renovate it
Contributed
to a standard acceptable.
Okay, so, right, well, that's, if you want to change it like that, but that then starts to knock out all the other options. Just be aware, you know, what Councillor Cashmore and Councillor Hulse are looking at, and I got the impression that even David was saying, hey, that's possible. You know, so that really knocks out all the other options.
I really need to find out if that's what the local board are actually wanting.
Can I just suggest the mover and seconder just chat with the local board while we take Councillor Simpson and Councillor Wayne Walker?
That's what I was going to suggest, Mr. Chair, because I've heard the chair of the local board ask for 10 months.
12.
Well, 12's after October, so you might want 12, I don't know. And I'm happy about that. I'm happy about that, but I just think that at the moment this just says retain. And I think that after discussion, maybe it is retained for a period of 12 months, in which the local board have promised to commit to the ongoing, the OPEX for a year, and look at options for the future growth. And if that's the case, I think that's a very good compromise.
Okay, so what are we going to do is we're just going to have a 5-minute break, and I just really want the mover and seconder to actually work on that, their alternate resolution there to make it more fit for purpose.